For Clark, that's 13 as Howard is up to 18 points.
Pass in.
What if I told you that the most valuable player in basketball right now earns a salary that's almost an afterthought? That for every dollar she makes from actually playing the game, she earns 99 from everything else. This isn't about a veteran legend cashing in on a lifetime of work. This is about a 23-year-old rookie who, in less than 2 years, has rewritten the entire rulebook for what an athlete's career can look like. Her name is Caitlin Clark, and while you've seen the highlights, the deep threes, the record-breaking crowds, the story you haven't heard is about the billion-dollar business she's building in real time.
Caitlin, how did this crowd, this moment, this environment meet your expectations today?
I mean, they always exceeded.
Here's Clark. Wow! You bet!
This is about how one person didn't just join a league. She exposed its entire economic model, spark a rebellion, and forced every major corporation in sports to make a choice, get on board or get left behind. By the end of this, you'll see why experts are calling this the most significant power shift in modern sports history. And before we dive into these shocking details, make sure you're subscribed. This story is evolving daily, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Let's rewind for a second. To understand the phenomenon, you have to go back before the sold-out arenas and the national commercials. Caitlin Clark wasn't manufactured in some corporate lab. She was forged in Iowa. During her time with the Iowa Hawkeyes, she didn't just break records, she vaporized them. She became the all-time leading scorer in NCAA Division I history for both men and women. But it wasn't just the points. It was the style, shots from the logo, passes nobody saw coming, a competitive fire that was impossible to look away from. She played with a swagger that was contagious. She made women's basketball must-watch television for people who had never watched a game in their lives.
Crowd, this moment, this environment meet your expectations today?
I mean, they always exceeded.
But here's the crucial part. Her rise coincided perfectly with a legal earthquake. In 2021, the NCAA finally allowed athletes to profit from their own name, image, and likeness, or NIL. For decades, college athletes generated billions for their schools and for corporations without seeing a single cent. That gate was now open. And Caitlin Clark didn't just walk through it, she sprinted. While other stars were figuring out local car dealership ads, Clark was assembling a Fortune 500 portfolio. State Farm, Gatorade, Bose, Buick, Nike. She wasn't just signing endorsement deals. She was conducting a masterclass in modern personal branding. By the time she was drafted first overall by the Indiana Fever in 2024, her off-court valuation was already estimated at a staggering $3.5 million. She was a professional businesswoman before she ever played a professional game. Yet, this foundation was about more than just a lucky timing. It was about a seismic shift in athlete empowerment. Clark's era was the first where a college star could build a national brand in real time, turning every highlight into a potential marketing asset.
On the past couple weeks and even the past couple months, I feel like I'm so focused on helping this team win and be so great.
She demonstrated an innate understanding of this new landscape, choosing partnerships that felt authentic to her identity as a fierce competitor. This wasn't random. It was strategic. Her deep shooting range became a metaphor for taking ambitious, long-range shots in business. Her unselfish passing reflected an understanding that elevating her team and her sport would, in turn, elevate her own platform to unprecedented heights. The groundwork she laid in Iowa wasn't just about preparing for the WNBA. It was about building a commercial launchpad that would propel her into a different stratosphere of influence the moment she turned pro. But one deal stood out as a signal of what was to come. It wasn't her biggest, but it was perhaps her most prophetic. State Farm. They didn't put her in some cheesy regional ad. They paired her with Jake from State Farm in a national spot, and something magical happened. She was natural, funny, relatable. She wasn't an athlete awkwardly reading a script. She was a star who understood the camera. That commercial did more than sell insurance. It sold Caitlin Clark to middle America. It proved she had crossover appeal far beyond the basketball court. It showed corporate America that she wasn't just a safe bet for women's sports, but a safe bet for mainstream America, period.
But obviously Northwestern makes it hard on us every time we play them, so I give them a lot of credit. Veronica Burton's a heck of a player.
This was the first major proof that the Caitlin Clark effect wasn't just about sports fans. It was about consumers. The brilliance of this campaign was in its subtlety. It didn't scream women's basketball. It simply presented Clark as a charismatic, cool athlete who could hold her own in a beloved national advertising franchise. The analytics were undeniable. The spot garnered tens of millions of views, engagement rates that dwarfed the brand's average. It transformed her from a sports prodigy into a household face, the kind you'd trust to recommend a product. This was the critical bridge. It proved her appeal wasn't niche or limited to ESPN highlights. It was broad-based and commercially potent. For other brands watching, this was a green light. If an insurance company known for its straightforward, neighborly vibe could score a viral hit with Clark, then the doors were blown wide open for every other category, from athletic wear to headphones to cars. The State Farm deal was a prototype, the successful test case that convinced every other major marketing director that Caitlin Clark wasn't a risk, but the safest, most rewarding bet on the board. Then came the moment that changed everything. Super Bowl 59. The most expensive, most watched advertising real estate on the planet. For 27 years, Nike, the biggest sports brand in the world, had never centered a women's basketball player in its Super Bowl commercial. Not once. In 2026, that streak ended with a declaration. The ad was called So Win, set to a powerful soundtrack. It featured a lineup of elite athletes being told what they can't do. And right there, alongside global stars, was Caitlin Clark. The message was clear. You can't win, so win. This wasn't a niche marketing play. This was Nike, a corporation that moves with cold, calculated precision, betting $16 million on a single message. The future of athletic dominance and cultural relevance is female. They were telling the world that Caitlin Clark wasn't just a face of the WNBA. She was now a pillar of the entire Nike empire. The commercial racked up tens of millions of views in hours. The cultural penetration was instant and absolute. With that one ad, Clark bridged the gap between grassroots basketball culture and the highest levels of corporate branding. She was no longer just a player. She was a symbol. The choice of soundtrack, the cinematic quality, and the roster of athletes positioned her not as an up-and-comer, but as an established icon. This was Nike planting its flag. The So Win theme directly mirrored Clark's own journey of defying expectations about where a women's basketball star's influence could reach. By placing her in this pantheon, Nike did something revolutionary. They marketed her exactly as they would market LeBron James or Cristiano Ronaldo, with the same budget, the same gravitas, and the same expectation of global impact. This commercial was the official corporate coronation. It signaled to retailers, to media partners, and to the entire sports industry that Nike was allocating its supreme resources behind Clark for the long term. The Super Bowl spot wasn't just an ad. It was a statement of faith in her lasting power, transforming her from a brand ambassador into a central character in Nike's own legacy narrative. And that's when the real business building began. Because Nike and other brands weren't just paying her to wear their stuff. They were partnering with her to build product lines. Take Wilson Sporting Goods. They didn't just make her an ambassador. They announced she would creatively direct her own signature basketball collection, making her the first female athlete to have that kind of creative partnership with the brand. They were essentially replicating the model they used with Michael Jordan in the 1980s. Let that sink in. Then Nike doubled down. Reports swirl of a landmark 8-year deal worth over $3 million per year on average. But the real news was what included her own signature shoe and her own logo, 2 interlocking C's. A signature shoe is the ultimate status symbol in athlete branding. It says you're not just marketable for a season, you're a legacy brand. Most athletes wait a decade for that honor. Clark got it before her second professional season even ended. Industry analysts project that shoe launch alone could generate between $100 and $150 million in sales. This is no longer about endorsement checks. This is about equity. About building a business where Caitlin Clark is the co-founder and the chief product officer. This shift from spokesperson to creative director is the most important evolution in her business story. It means she has a direct stake in the product success and a say in their design, marketing, and distribution. Her logo, the interlocking C's, is an asset she will own forever, a brand mark that could be licensed and live far beyond her playing days. This is a league of Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods, where the athlete's identity becomes a standalone profitable enterprise. The projected sales figures for her signature shoe aren't just impressive. They are historic for a women's team sport athlete. They suggest Nike sees a path where Clark's merchandise can transcend the traditional women's sports market and compete in the mainstream sneakerhead culture, a space notoriously dominated by male athletes and hip-hop collaborations. This move isn't a sponsorship, it's the creation of a commercial empire with Clark at its center. So, What does this business genius mean for the league she actually plays in? The numbers are so dramatic, they're hard to believe. In her rookie year, the Indiana Fever saw their ticket revenue increase by over 300%. Road games turned into instant sellouts. Television ratings for Fever games and for the WNBA as a whole shattered previous records. League merchandise sales, with her number 22 jersey leading the way, exploded by over 400%. It's estimated that in 2024, Clark was personally responsible for driving over a quarter of the entire WNBA's economic activity. One person, one rookie, a quarter of a multi-billion-dollar league's economy. This isn't popularity. This is economic gravity. She was pulling so much weight that the league's entire media rights valuation was thrown into question. The WNBA's old TV deals suddenly looked like absurd bargains for the networks. League executives were forced to fast-track new negotiations, all because the market value of the product had been radically reassessed the moment Clark stepped on the court. She didn't ask for a seat at the table. Her presence built a whole new, much bigger table. The Clark effect created a halo effect for the entire league. Rookies and veterans alike saw increased jersey sales. Team sponsorships became more expensive and desirable. Charter flights, a long-standing point of contention for players' safety and performance, finally became a reality as the league's increased revenue and scrutiny made the previous commercial travel model untenable. Her impact provided irrefutable data points. When you market a star with the intensity and creativity she deserves, the audience shows up in record numbers and spends money. This forced a fundamental reevaluation of every assumption about the ceiling for women's professional sports. It was no longer about asking if the WNBA could be a major commercial entity, but how fast it could get there, with Clark's trajectory serving as the accelerant. Which leads us to the most controversial, most talked about part of this entire story, the paycheck. In 2024, Caitlin Clark's base salary for playing for the Indiana Fever was $76,535. That's not a typo. For being the number 1 overall pick, the most talked about athlete in the sport, her take-home pay from basketball was less than what many mid-level corporate managers make. Her total WNBA earnings with bonuses were roughly $100,000. Now, compare that to her off-court earnings from those endorsements we talked about, an estimated $11 million. Do the math. That means her historic WNBA salary represented just 1% of her total annual income. 1%. This stunning disparity blew up the internet and ignited a firestorm of debate about player pay, gender equity, and the value of women's sports. Fans were outraged. How could the player generating all this revenue be paid so little? WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert pointed to the league's complex bonus structures and the fact that players can earn up to $250,000 through league marketing deals. But veterans quickly called this out. Seattle Storm forward Gabby Williams publicly denounced the idea that any WNBA player was making the $700,000 figures sometimes floated by the league, calling it simply not true. The core of the issue is brutal, basic economics. The WNBA's total revenue is a fraction of the NBA's. In 2024, the average NBA team generated over $400 million. The average WNBA team, about $18 million. The leagues are at completely different life cycles. The NBA is 80 years old. The WNBA is in its late 20s. But Clark's impact exposed a circular argument. Do players get paid less because the revenue is smaller? Or is the revenue smaller because the league hasn't historically invested in marketing its stars at this level? Clark became the living, breathing argument for the latter. The tension became so great that immediately after the 2024 finals, the Players Union, led by President Nneka Ogwumike, opted out of the collective bargaining agreement. They weren't just asking for more money. They were demanding a new business model. And every single demand was backed up by the economic proof point named Caitlin Clark. This paradox made her a powerful, albeit reluctant, labor symbol. Her situation highlighted that the league salary structure was completely detached from an individual player's ability to drive economic value, a concept taken for granted in men's sports. But here's the twist in the story that nobody saw coming. All that momentum, all that relentless pressure came at a physical cost. The 2025 WNBA season was supposed to be Clark's coronation. Instead, it became a lesson in vulnerability. A persistent groin injury, followed by an ankle issue, limited her to just 13 games. The Fever, cautious with their most valuable asset, ultimately shut her down for the season in September. The stats from that truncated season, 16.5 points, 8.8 assists per game, were solid, but a dip from her rookie year, clearly impacted by her health. For any other athlete, this would be a catastrophe. A sophomore slump fueled by injury can derail narratives and cool off marketing hype. But Caitlin Clark isn't any other athlete. While she was rehabbing, her business empire kept right on operating. The Nike machine kept planning her shoe launch. The Gatorade deals were still active. The State Farm ads were still in rotation. Her commercial airings were tracked in the tens of thousands. The injury revealed the genius of her early strategy. She wasn't just a basketball player who had endorsements. She was a global brand that happened to play basketball. Her income was 99% immune to the twists and turns of athletic fate. This financial safety net is unprecedented for a player at her stage. It gives her power, leverage, and time. It means the league needs her brand stability as much as she needs the league. The injury, ironically, proved the durability of the model she pioneered. It showed that by diversifying her revenue streams so massively and building equity-based partnerships, she had achieved a level of financial security and career control that WNBA players historically could only dream of. Her time off the court wasn't a setback for her brand. It became a period of anticipation, building hype for her return and for the upcoming product launches. This pivot demonstrated that her influence had become systemic, not solely performance-dependent, which brings us to now, to the legacy being written in real time. Caitlin Clark's story is not a sports fairy tale. It's a business case study. She is the ultimate product of the Nil Revolution, a charismatic force of nature who arrived at the exact moment the infrastructure, social media, changing cultural attitudes, and new marketing dollars was ready for her. She proved that the audience for women's sports isn't just passionate. It's massive, engaged, and wildly commercially viable. She forced the WNBA to confront its own growth potential in the most dramatic way possible. She showed every young athlete coming up behind her a new blueprint. You can build your empire concurrently with your career, not after it. The brands aren't just sponsoring her. They are investing in the market she represents. The Caitlin Clark effect is now a term in boardrooms. It's the proof that shifting energy and dollars toward women's sports isn't a charitable act. It's one of the smartest business moves you can make. The power shift isn't coming. It has already happened. And everyone else, the leagues, the networks, the corporate sponsors, is just scrambling to catch up. Her true legacy may be the demolition of the old ceiling. She has created a new financial and cultural paradigm where the next generation of female stars will enter the pros with established brands, higher expectations for partnership involvement, and the leverage to demand a fairer share of the revenue they generate. Caitlin Clark moved the needle so far that it broke. The question is no longer if a woman can be the most marketable force in basketball, but how many will follow her through the door she has blown wide open. So, what do you think is next? Will the WNBA's new CBA close the shocking pay gap her story highlighted? Will her signature shoe become the cultural icon Nike is betting on? Let me know your predictions in the comments below. If this deep dive into the business behind the icon surprised you, share this video with one person who needs to see it. And of course, subscribe and hit that notification bell, because in the story of Caitlin Clark, the next chapter is always the most shocking one.